Big ups to my boy Bramantio on the beat, Indonesian producer. On the mic we got Ninja T, aka the Indonesian Grime King. UK, Indonesia, worldwide, international way.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Diversity Podcast, where we explore and discuss diversity of our society and identity, both yours and mine, and identity of my guests. I'm happy to introduce you guys my next guest. His name is Fadlan, and he is Indonesian-British. Both of Fadlan's parents were born in Indonesia and moved to the UK in 1994, and a year after Fadlan was born. So in today's episode we will discuss Fadlan's identity, possibly Indonesian culture, and perception of its in West. Hi Fadlan, thanks for coming over. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Hello Violetta, thank you for inviting me, and I'm super excited to be an early guest on the Diversity Podcast.
Great, thank you. So first of all, I want to make a disclaimer that you are actually the only Indonesian person I know. Well, apart from your dad, who I met last week.
Yes, the legend.
If we exclude your dad, you're the only Indonesian person I know. So I think for the starters, it would be good to talk a little bit about Indonesia, because at least in Russia, most people know about Indonesia through Bali, because it's like the most very popular touristic destination, and people go there traveling and things like that. So let's talk about Indonesia, just in a few sentences maybe, or if you want, you can go deep. Just what is the country, where it is, and the diversity of society, whether there are like few ethnicities or languages, just briefly, whatever you feel comfortable.
100%. So Indonesia was only formed in 1945. We were a group of islands. Actually, first of all, let's identify where Indonesia is on the map. It is above Australia and below Thailand, and besides Malaysia and Singapore.
That's for children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where you can find it on the map, because I believe most people, most adults, if you ask them, in the United Kingdom, where's Indonesia, I don't think most people know where it is.
You think? I think no one knows who is Kalmyk people and where is Kalmyk. But Indonesia, I think they think like it's Asia, because Indonesia. But
maybe we need to do a social experiment on that, get a globe and then ask people where is Indonesia, and then give them like 3 seconds. But anyway, so we were formed in 1945. We are an ex-Dutch colony, so we were occupied by Dutch, or let's just use a proper word, enslaved by Holland.
That's true. From 18 height.
Yeah, and I love Amsterdam. I love Rotterdam. Shouts on my Dutch people. There's no animosity carried on. But yeah, from 1800s to 1945, we were originally called the Netherlands East Indies, and we were actually occupied by Japan for a short period of time between 1942 and 1945. There are thousands of Indonesian islands and hundreds of languages. I don't know exactly the amount of islands or the amount of languages, but everyone in Indonesia, by everyone I mean 99% plus or ish, don't hold me on the stat, but I've basically never met an Indonesian person who doesn't speak Indonesian. Despite there being so many local languages, I have, in my entire time of living in Indonesia, going to Indonesia, meeting Indonesian people, I've never met an Indonesian person that doesn't speak Indonesian. So as far as I'm aware, 99%-ish plus, give or take, Indonesians speak Indonesian, despite there being hundreds or maybe even thousands of languages.
You're talking about Indonesian from Indonesia, or
yes,
both British-Indonesian as well?
So British-Indonesians...
It's different, right?
Yeah. So first of all, it must be noted that Indonesian people in general are not known to immigrate much and leave Indonesia much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like we don't have, outside of Holland, I don't believe there is another country with a super significant Indonesian population. Like if you look at
So there is a big community of Indonesian in Holland, right? Due to colonization.
yeah, absolutely. Right. You go to Amsterdam, you go to Rotterdam. There's lots of Indonesian Dutch people. There's lots of half Indonesian, half Dutch people as well. Lots of Indonesian restaurants. But as far as I'm aware, there's not any significant Indonesian communities outside of Indonesia, because historically speaking, we don't really have the ties with other countries like that. What I mean is, in the United Kingdom, we've had Jamaican people and Indian people who've come here and have lived here for a very, very long time. Because of war and colonization and such things. Indonesia doesn't really have those kind of ties, and I don't want to downplay my own culture, but we've not culturally penetrated the world like that in terms of.
Well, you didn't colonize other countries. That's a good thing.
Yeah. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I mean, we were pretty Look, colonization was a bad thing when it comes to morally, but economically, Holland did us a favor.
Okay.
We would not be a second world country if. I mean, we're definitely not a first world country, but we wouldn't be a second world country if it wasn't for the infrastructure that the Dutch did. If we were if the Indonesian region was left to its own devices between 1800 and now, I don't think we would be where we're at today.
Don't you think this is like one of the reasons as well? Because there are some countries which we were colonized and the economy of which were destroyed, and this, like, I don't know, it's called third world countries, right? But in Indonesia, it, like, from what you're saying, because as I said, I don't know many Indonesian people, like you're the only one and your dad, 2 people.
And by the way, guys, I'm not the best representation of Indonesia.
Oh, it's okay, you are who you are. And
I've spent most of my life in England.
You are who you are, and I'm who I am. Yeah, Fadlan was born here. I think I said it in the beginning as well, yeah. So don't you think that it is not common for Indonesian people to leave the country because it is like rather comfortable level of life there?
I'm going to be honest, yeah. When I speak to Indonesian people in Indonesia, they don't talk about leaving Indonesia much.
Yeah.
Because my country has so much going on. You can live a fantastic life within Indonesia. You can go to Bali, you can go to Padang, you can go to Jakarta, you can go to amazing Komodo Islands, you can go to the rainforest, you can go to so Jakarta, where I'm from, is extremely overpopulated, more overpopulated than London, higher population than London. And then on the flip, you've got Surabaya, which is the second biggest city, and that is super clean. It's like 7 hours drive on the same island, extremely clean, extremely peaceful. So yeah, I feel like Indonesia has a lot of internal vibes.
Why do you think it happened like this? Because like mostly colonization have really bad consequences, like for example in the third world countries. But in Indonesia it looks like it didn't happen as a normal scenario, Okay,
I'm not saying that the Dutch...
Oh no, I'm not saying that was amazing.
I'm not saying they were like the nicest people ever, because when you colonize, there's definitely some killing and enslaving going on and immoral things. But in comparison to maybe like the British Empire,
that's what I'm saying.
I feel like the Dutch. Okay, again, I'm not the best Indonesian representative, but I'm just going off consensus. You never really hear Indonesian people say, "Oh, I wish the Dutch would give back our resources." Whereas many people from, let's say, African descent, they may have some kind of ill feelings towards the royal family, and rightly so, right? Because you've got millions of pounds worth of jewels in there, and they should give them back, in my opinion. But as far as colonization goes, I feel like the Dutch were pretty nice about it. So I think so. Even though they didn't want to give the country back, and I don't know the exact reason why Japan took over our country for a short period of time. I'm not too familiar with that 1940s and 1945 period, but I feel like they I know colonization is never a great things or terrible things that happen, but in comparison to maybe other empires, I don't really hear. And this is again going from consensus and definitely being Indonesian who's raised in the UK but has relatively good experience with Indonesia because I've lived there and I've got Indonesian. You know, I'm friends with people in the Indonesian community. I don't feel like Holland were that terrible compared to other colonizers.
Yeah, that's what it looks like when we talk about level of life, for example. Maybe I'll need to Google and read about that more.
Same.
When you say you lived there in Indonesia, what do you mean? Because you go travel there and spend time, or you live there like as a child or something?
Yeah, so I was born there. And then I moved to the United Kingdom when I was young.
Oh, really? Because I said your parents were moved here in 1994.
No, 1996.
Oh, 1996. It's from your Instagram post.
Huh?
It's from your Instagram post.
No. I said my parents got married in Indonesia.
Ah, okay.
My parents got married in Indonesia on the 19th of June, 1994.
Oh, okay.
I was born on the 15th of June, 1995.
And 96 they moved here,
yeah.
Okay,
96,
I got it.
96.
So you born there. Okay, great. Thanks. We definitely all need to read about how Dutch and British, the differences of managing their colonial politics policy. Okay, so since we already start talking about your parents, I want to ask and talk about a little bit about your parents. What are their ethnicities, and if you could say what are the differences, because I know there is a differences between people who come from Eastern Indonesia and Western Indonesia, maybe in skin color, definitely in languages, right? Because your dad is Javanese, I understand.
Yes.
And
he's from the island of Java.
So your dad is Javanese, and
so not only is my dad born and raised in Jakarta, so are my grandparents on my dad's side.
So they're all Javanese, yeah?
Yeah. So we're Javanese, but specifically, in Indonesia, we call people from Jakarta Betawi.
Betawi, what does it mean?
It means
it's a word.
I don't know if it means something specifically, but it definitely means from Jakarta. From the capital. Because people from Jakarta are much different to everybody outside of Jakarta. Because just like people from London have a different energy to people from Manchester, right? Just being extremely stereotypical. Somebody from London might be a bit more fast-paced, like the way that they live, a bit more straight-talking, because in London, people have less time, where in Manchester, people are a bit more polite, a bit more, not just polite, but more open and friendly to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
I would say more specifically.
So.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay, think about it like this, right? You're at the bus stop in Manchester, someone's more likely to talk to you at the bus stop and say hello. In London, it's way less likely someone's going to talk to you at the bus stop.
Yeah, it's like a Moscow, like many capitals.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So I iterate that my dad is Javanese, but specifically Jakartanese, right?
Okay.
Or aka Betawi. This is extremely stereotypical, but my dad is I guess you would say slightly darker shade Indonesian. He's
even though it's not very eastern part, right?
Sorry?
Even though Jakarta, even though he's not from eastern part.
Well, it's because Jakarta's extremely. I think it's to do with the heat and the pollution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'd say my dad's side is a little bit darker, browner. Where my mom is from Padang. Well, she's from Jakarta, but my grandparents from my mom's side are from Padang, which is a different island.
Ancestors are from different areas.
Exactly. And in Padang, it's very cool over there. Well, it's still hot, but it's the mountains.
Okay.
Yeah. So this doesn't apply for everyone in Padang, but there's a lot of people with fairer skin, lighter skin. Mm-hmm. That's why I look like my dad. I mean, I look like my mom as well, but I think I got a little bit lighter skin than my dad because of my mom's complexion.
You're mixed, yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically my genetic Indonesian makeup. I'm half Padang, half Javanese.
Okay, nice. So but I wanted to highlight that there are different shades and colors to Indonesian people, right? Because a lot of people, a lot of people, especially I guess in Russia as well, but in the West, they don't know how much darker you can get in Indonesia and Malaysia.
Oh, sorry, I've just done a quick Google because I just wanted to make sure this is right. Padang is a city that is on the island of West Sumatra. So the island is called West Sumatra, And the region is called Padang.
The region is Padang,
Padang isn't the name of the island.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. So I was saying that there are different shades, right? Because a lot of people, when it comes to South Asian people, I don't think so many people, especially in the West or in Russia, I'm talking about from my experience, like aware about that some people from Indonesia, Malaysia, like they look like African, for example. They're like very dark. That applies to Indonesian people as well, right?
Yeah, so there's like, I would say there's a few Indonesian looks, right, across the country. So you first of all have your very, very Chinese-looking Indonesians, because there is a whole ethnicity of Chinese Indonesians. Chinese settlers. I'll actually go a little bit into Chinese Indonesians, which because there's been a lot of tension between Chinese Indonesians and non-Chinese Indonesians, but now it's getting way better, especially in Jakarta. But it was definitely a problem up until like the 70s or 80s. Racism was really high, and it was really bad to be Chinese Indonesian back then. Thankfully, it's way better. And I have a few Chinese Indonesian friends.
I think
as
it's
well.
connected to communism, because the last time we talked, I actually was reading about genocide.
It's to do with political beliefs and religion. Yeah. Because Chinese Indonesians are almost always non-Muslim, and Indonesia's a mainly Muslim country. But anyway, right, let's go into the ethnicity. So you've got your Chinese Indonesians that are definitely their own Indonesian race. Then you have like your Aboriginal,
like native, indigenous,
indigenous, very like African looking Indonesians, and they're normally in like the east side of Indonesia, in West Papua is called. So there is an island, there is a country called Papua New Guinea. And the main island in Papua New Guinea, which is its own country, the other half is Indonesia, but a lot of Indonesians on the island don't consider themselves Indonesians. They consider themselves part of Papua New Guinea, which makes sense because they're on the same island. So
it used to be probably the same place, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But yeah, on that side of Indonesia, like it's almost like Afrocentric kind of people, and then you've got Indonesians that clearly have South Asian heritage. Like I know Indonesians that basically look Indian. Yeah, so
you don't look Indian though.
No, definitely not me. Yeah. So they're very like brown. They're very like brown South Asian looking. And then you've got. I'd say the last ethnicity is like Indonesians, but even within that, there is
diversity. Because when I was reading about Indonesia, I was reading that there's so many different ethnicities, and like obviously, as I understand, like there is a language which unites everyone, but there are different also like sub languages.
Thankfully, everyone speaks Bahasa Indonesia, and the word Bahasa is actually Indonesian for language. So Bahasa Indonesia literally means language Indonesia. Or language of Indonesia, because we don't have a word for of.
Yeah. So would you say that? Okay, let's move to the other question, because I wanted to jump to the language.
Crack on.
Well, to the language straight away. What was like for you growing up in the UK? And I'm asking this question fully aware that you are British person because you raised here, but ethnically and like I guess culturally you are Indonesian, and I wanted to know.
Ethnically, I'm 100% Indonesian. Culturally, I'd say it's more like mainly British, but with a lot of Indonesian values.
Okay, so would you say you've grown up, and were there ever a particular moment like, okay, I'm actually Indonesian and like I have to be proud of it, or like, you always knew you're Indonesian?
No,
how does it work?
I have definitely never forgot that I'm Indonesian. I've never woke up.
You speak language in your family. Culturally,
so,
it's all preserved, right?
So first of all, English is my first language by definition of what I mainly think in when I speak to myself, and the level of execution I'm able to speak the language. I speak Indonesian very well, but as a 28-year-old man, I would say my Indonesian vocabulary matches maybe like a 13, 14-year-old. right?
Okay.
Yeah, so like maybe if I read high level text like a newspaper, I might not
It would
understand.
improve. Oh,
No, like I'll understand, but there'll be a few words that I have to look up, and
Yeah,
be like,
okay.
I'm not too sure what this means. So what's the question again?
So my question was like, growing up, were there particular moments when you realized, okay, I'm Indonesian?
Yeah.
Like this?
So it would be certain cultural things that would maybe be acceptable in by British. I'm probably referring to, because the thing is, British is such a diverse thing now anyway.
Exactly.
But going on like traditional Caucasian white households, when I would go to specifically a Caucasian household, a Caucasian British, let's say Anglo-Saxon Caucasian household, I would definitely realise that, you know, we're both British, but we're different British. So I'm just going to give you a basic example. Let's take like kissing a dog, for example, right?
What do you kissing?
That's a very white British thing to do.
Oh, okay.
No disrespect, but
I like literally kissing a dog?
literally kissing a dog.
Like an animal. Yeah.
Like a kid, like kissing a dog. Or just the idea of like an animal being in the bed. Right? Because like a lot of my white
It's not very
friends...
common in your culture.
Oh, it's unacceptable.
Really?
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
Why? Is it to do with religion? Or just generally?
General, like even like
was it
Indonesian,
cleanness? To do with the cleanness?
It's to do. Okay. Let me give a basic example, right? So, for the record, on this podcast, when I talk about British, I'm going to talk about Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon, British culture, because that's its own culture.
Yeah.
In itself, right? So it's like in British culture, which again, when I say British, I'm typically referring to Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian, white people, British. I feel like in British culture, like your dog and your cat is part of the family. That's a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. In Indonesia, your cat and your dog is not part of the family.
Okay.
It is a pet.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah. Like this is like, I remember being a kid, and like thinking, because some of my families have dogs and cats, but they treat them like an animal. Do you know what I mean? Like, you do what I say, and I'm gonna love you and pet you, but I'm not gonna kiss you and let you, sit in my bed. But I remember being young, and I was going to one of my white friends' houses, and he was playing PlayStation, and his dog just came over and sat in his bed, and he kissed his dog, and then had his dog round his arm, and I just thought, that was a moment when I thought, I am not white British.
Okay, that's an example I didn't expect to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never, well, you put me on the spot, but that's a example where...
That's a good one, because like
that would not be acceptable.
I only had animals when I was like a child, and we had house. We were living in our grandparents' house, and it was like a yard and a garden. Yeah. So we had to have a dog outside for protection. Right. And a cat like to catch mice and stuff. Okay. So it was like pets for their duties, you know.
For their duties, yes.
Yeah. But I still love animals, but I just don't have them now. Yeah. But okay. I think I understand what you mean. Yeah. I guess I just never really thought about it. Okay. But you never had like some sort of like, I don't know how to say, identity crisis as a child? Because I'm asking this because I think British society is like super diverse from like my experience. Because I grew up in an Asian place, but then when I moved to Moscow, it is diverse in its own way, because we have a lot of people from like, for example, North Caucasus, which is like not Caucasian white people, but like it's a region, North Caucasus. There are Muslim people who live there. It's close to my republic. Then we have a lot of Asian people like me, or maybe Uzbek from Kyrgyzstan, Middle Asia. And it is diverse, but here it's like people from everywhere in the world. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, this is the thing. One thing my mum and dad instilled in me was that they always reminded me, like, you are Indonesian. Okay, so let me give you the most practical example of my parents reminding me I'm Indonesian. Okay. When I was young, obviously I was learning 2 languages at the same time. Mm-hmm. Then I went to what's that thing before primary school? Nursery. Yeah. So long ago. I'm learning English, and then I come home and speak English, and my parents would always tell me, no, you don't speak English at home, you speak Indonesian.
So you always speak Indonesian.
And if I spoke to them in English, they'd ask me, they'd say in Indonesian, they'd say, apa Indonesianya? What's that in Indonesian? Or like if I'd be stubborn and carry on speaking to them in English, my mum would be like, apa sih nggak ngerti, which means, what are you saying? I don't understand. Like she just played dumb. Like she's like, oh, you have to say it in Indonesian to be able to. And then I remembered, because obviously I'm not saying I got bullied as a kid, right? Because I was a pretty popular kid and I had a good childhood. But you know how like kids can pick on differences. Pick on differences. Yeah, I remember when my friends, they would have like, especially my white friends, they would have. No, not just my white friends, white and black friends. They would have sandwiches and crisps, and then I would have rice and chicken or noodles or whatever, and I would have.
You mean like for the lunch? For
lunch, yeah.
Yeah.
And they would like be like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, it looks like worms, right? And I remember being upset going home, and my mum explained to me that the kids don't understand, and I need to keep being proud of this. So that was kind of a little bit hard, but I got used to it, and then And then,
so it was just picking on you because of the food?
Yeah, and then looking back, I was just like, my packed lunches were way better. Like, when I think about
healthier, right?
When I think about the effort my mum put in back then, and to this day, like I ate food with my mum because she came back from Indonesia today, and I was just thinking like, mum was an amazing cook. Like she really puts in, she's always put in work when it comes to the kitchen since I was young. So yeah, that's an Indonesian thing as well. I don't know how many cultures do it, but a spoon and a fork.
Spoon and a fork? What do you mean?
So you're not a knife and a fork, a spoon and a fork. That's a very Indonesian thing.
Is it an Indonesian fork?
Yeah.
Because of the noodles?
Because we a lot of feed with soup as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so like fork would be like for the noodles.
For the noodles and for the liquid, yeah.
And no, well the fork would be for the noodles, and then the spoon would be for the rice and or the liquid.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess because we have a lot of soup as well. Like, but you mean like you normally don't use a knife if you have a dinner? I'm
gonna be honest. The only times Indonesians use a knife is when we're eating like non-Indonesian food, like steak.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no. Indonesians never use a knife.
That's an interesting fact. Okay, since we're talking about the household and family, I was going to ask another question as well, connected to preserving the culture. So, as we discussed, you spoke Indonesian all your childhood and all your life inside your household. Yeah. Yes. So, would you say your family and maybe your Indonesian surroundings, community, use any other ways to maintain the culture? Because in the case, for example, if you marry non-Indonesian woman, are you allowed to marry a non-Indonesian woman?
My parents are completely happy with me marrying a non-Indonesian woman. I have no doubt that my mum, specifically on my mum's side, they have a preference. Like they would obviously prefer me to marry an Indonesian woman, but it's absolutely
But there is no like pushing.
There's no pushing, no.
But it has to be Muslim.
100% has to be Muslim, and that comes from my parents and comes from me internally as well.
Okay, yeah. But do some Indonesian, both, I want to talk about male and female as well, do some Indonesian male and female marry, like practically nowadays, let's say UK or Indonesia, do they marry other nationalities?
I mean, yeah, 100%.
And staying within the religion?
I'm going to be honest, as well, just like in other parts of Asia, right, which I won't even talk about specific countries because I'm not qualified, but yeah, if you know, you know, right, there's still a level of white supremacy, I'm going to be honest. A level of white supremacy where an Indonesian woman, if they got with a white man, it would be, especially if that white man couldn't revert to Islam, yeah, that would be seen as a success.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, like, whether they're there or here. Yeah?
Yeah, that would be considered, you know, socially, like
even by family you're talking about.
Yeah. But by a lot of Indonesian families.
Because he's
white? Because he's white, there's a status attached to it. And then if you're an Indonesian man who maybe gets like an Australian girl, like a white girl. This is like the consensus in, like, I guess you could say Jakarta, because I'm very Jakartanese, you know, say, because that's where I spent. That's where most of my Indonesian experience comes from, the capital. You know, like if you like, I can just imagine like one of my homies in Jakarta, if they got with like an Australian because there's lots of Australians living in Jakarta, especially English teachers, right? Mm-hmm. And then she reverted to Islam. There would definitely been some level of social status attached to that.
Is it a success as well?
That would be seen as a success. But I definitely don't feel like Indonesia. I'm glad that we're definitely a country with a lot of self-love. I do believe that the Indonesians are extreme. I would say the average Indonesian is more proud to be Indonesian than the average British person is proud to be British. The basic example is, I don't know the English anthem. You know the God Save the Queen? Like, I don't know that off by heart.
I don't know that.
But every Indonesian person knows the anthem because you have to sing it in school.
That's interesting.
Yeah. They're very patriotic.
It's very interesting to learn about this white supremacy. Well, obviously, we all know that the racism and everything didn't go anywhere, but I just didn't know that there is this, unspoken, statuses, successes. Okay, so, but it doesn't matter if you marry, a darker skin, right? Or if there is some still judgment.
Okay, so this is the thing, right? So there is definitely, thankfully, because of the modern world, etc., Black Lives Matter, and such movements and people opening their eyes, where the beauty standard in Indonesian, even for Indonesian women, is unfortunately to this day, like I said, it's not as bad as it used to be. But the lighter complexion you are, the more beautiful you are in the general consensus. Like, look, you go to you know how in the UK we've got tanning. Mm-hmm. In Indonesia, you got white.
So it's opposite.
You got white. You got white.
Yeah. I was watching about Korea and some other Asian countries, but I just didn't know about Indonesia. Okay.
Even in 2018, there were adverts where there was a clearly beautiful Indonesian woman, and then she put on this thing, and then she became lighter shade, and then the advert portrayed her as even more beautiful than she was because she got a bit lighter.
Okay, so I guess this is answering my question that it is you can be judged by skin color.
You can definitely be judged by skin color, more so if you're a woman.
Okay.
So I would say it's way more common.
I'm not even surprised.
Yeah, it would be way more common for as a dark. Okay, in general beauty consensus society, last time I checked, because I've not been to Indonesia since 2018, right? Last time I checked, males who have lighter skin are preferred, but it wouldn't be uncommon for a darker Indonesian male to be with a beautiful, lighter-skinned Indonesian woman. But the other way around would be very uncommon.
Basically, so there is a lot of shame on on women, females.
I wouldn't say shame, but preference. There is a preference.
Judgment and preference.
There is definitely a preference.
Female
on females. Skin. Not females to be lighter skin.
Yeah, females to be lighter
males,
skin.
Males and females, but stronger on the female side. So like I said, a darker male, Indonesian male, could definitely, by society standard, not too hard for him if he went to the gym and he had confidence, get a light-skinned Indonesian woman. But the other way around, a dark-skinned Indonesian woman, for her to get a light-skinned male would be way more uncommon. I'm not saying it's impossible, yeah. And thankfully, because of I'd say hip hop culture definitely helped. There's definitely, I remember there's a little shift in Indonesia from maybe 2010, 2017 where some Indonesians started even liking, Georgia Smith. I remember Georgia Smith, right? Let's say Georgia Smith, right? I remember a lot of my homies in Indonesia, Georgia Smith was the first non-Indonesian, non-Caucasian woman that they ever found attractive. They were like, okay, she's black, she's so sexy. Do you know what I mean?
So you didn't like the other rappers, darker skinned rappers, females.
They never found them attractive.
They didn't find them attractive. Oh wow, you didn't know that to this extent. Because I think I guess it's because I live here for a few years, but I kind of live in a world where I find these darker skinned females attractive, and I guess I just didn't think about it. Okay, that's interesting. So there was a shift, and I think it's a lot to do with social media, to be fair, and internet.
Of course, well, but I wouldn't say social media, because social media is open, way more open and less gated. I would say it's media, like TV, because up until not that long ago, Indonesians only ever saw Indonesians and white people. So it's not like they don't hate black people.
Yeah,
they just don't see them.
It just like it's quite reserved country, as I understand from like what we are talking so far. Like not super like traveling there and establishing the community. So actually, let's get back to my question. We got to the marriage question, but my initial question was about whether there are other ways apart from like speaking within the home the language. There are other ways to preserve the culture, for example, marry non-Indonesian and something like this. Basically, do you think Indonesian community, the one you know and familiar with in the UK, have or trying to preserve their culture, and if there is like different ways to do that, like for example, you have to do this, or like let's just
it's not really have to, but I would go as far as say that the Indonesian-British community is extremely tight. We make up for, I guarantee, there is not one Indonesian person in the UK I'm not connected to. If I don't know them directly, someone I know will know them.
Is it because it's small, or is it because they're like super
It's because
tight?
There's a decent infrastructure in place. So most Indonesians that live in the UK, they come as students, right? And like the Indonesian University Society is very, very, I wouldn't say it's extremely well organized, but it's pretty well organized from what I can see on the outside. So there's like the Indonesian UK University Society, and then there's the
You mean like for the whole university?
For all the universities, there's like a Facebook group.
There's not big community of Indonesian here, right?
There's not like
thousands of people.
I think in Manchester, I would be so surprised if there was 1,000 Indonesians in Manchester. I would probably say there's maybe like 300 to 500 tops.
Okay.
And we have quite a lot of meetups, I'll be honest. Yeah, there's the Indonesian Society will anyone who listens to this from Manchester, they throw one in Manchester every single year, like Indonesian cultural event. So yeah, that's in Manchester, like Oxford roadsides. And then the Indonesian community, they just, especially the university community, are very active in just like throwing their own events. Mm-hmm. And then second generations like myself are always welcome to go to them. And then there's like the Indonesian UK OGs, aka my parents. Shout out to my mum, Iraflita Dahlan, my dad, Iwan Effendi. They're married, but my mum didn't take my dad's surname. That's actually not too common in Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah, it's common for women to keep their surname.
Okay, yeah. I'm happy for them. That's a good thing. Yeah. I'm standing on the side that women shouldn't change their surname. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty tight then. And okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, there are many there are many people like generation of your dad, like a first. Okay, you call yourself second generation. He's the first
I'm technically first generation, but because I came when I was a child. But I call myself second generation.
But like so mostly it's
my sister's
mostly it's like education, migration. Yeah, migrating here for education or like work and things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost all Indonesians that are in the UK, first generation, such as my dad, came here because of education. So my dad got a PhD scholarship in 1996 to study computer science at Leeds Uni. And in the 90s, the original wave of Indonesians were scholarships. Mm-hmm. And from, I would say, maybe like the mid-2000s, it was mainly not scholarships because the UK in general stopped giving out scholarships so easily because they needed to tighten the borders on immigration, etc. So a lot of the people Indonesians who came here from the mid noughties, they respectfully came from rich parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there are still students like this. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about a little bit more about Indonesian society. How would you describe our Indonesian families still maintain the conservatism? Like, are they traditional? Like, are there particular roles to male and female? Because before you, I didn't even know that Indonesia, like, Muslim or like, I mean, like, I met you like 5 years ago, but then I didn't know much about Indonesia, and I still think I don't. But it still feels like it's.
I feel like I don't. I'm making this all up.
But it still feels like it's quite a traditional society.
Yeah.
Not society, community. Like it feels like community bonds are strong.
So obviously Indonesia is a very big country. So speaking on Jakarta,
Like, let's talk about your generation, our generation. Like, are there particular roles attached to male and female? Or it doesn't matter now. Like, we live super modern life. We all can be feminists and things like that. There are some expectations.
I would definitely say Jakarta is somewhat liberal, but nowhere near as liberal as the United Kingdom. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I'm not for like 100% liberalism. You can be anything and everything that you can want to be without any level of backlash. But that's a whole different thing. But yeah, measuring by absolute freedom to do what you want. No, I would definitely say there is definitely more of a traditional vibe to even Jakarta, and the more rural you get. Rural means less people, right? That's what.
Rural, it's like a suburban.
Yeah. So the more rural you get, I have to just you have to make sure like you're saying the right word.
It's okay. It's all editable, but it is rural. Yeah.
All right. So.
It's a more traditional.
Yeah. So the more rural you get, the more traditional you get. I would definitely say that the whole kind of like feminist movement doesn't really exist in mass in Indonesia. I'm sure there's pockets, but in Jakarta, I would definitely say like women are definitely more traditionally feminine, and women definitely look more towards that. Like I said, even in Jakarta, mind you, Jakarta is the most liberal of the entire.
Like the most progressive.
Yeah. I don't even know if progressive is the right word.
Okay, liberal is a broad word as well.
Yeah.
Let's say modern.
Yeah. Modern. Because progressive, like
it's subjective.
Yeah, it's so subjective because when people say progressive, it's like saying other places are unprogressive. That doesn't sit.
Yeah,
with me.
let's say modern.
It doesn't. Let me just say it doesn't sit with me that the consensus in the West is that the West is this super progressive place, and everywhere else, including the Middle East and Africa, is unprogressive. I completely disagree with that.
By the way, when I ask this question, I don't like imply any negative or positive.
No,
we talk about like each other's experience, and that's all that matters. And people build their own opinions.
Yeah, 100%. So what was the question?
So the question was, is it still traditional? Would you say it's a traditional society, basically, the Indonesian community?
I would say at mass, Indonesia is a way more traditional society than the United Kingdom, where there's definitely not in mass, definitely exists somewhere in the pockets. There's not like a big feminist movement. Women are not fighting for like the same roles as men. I feel like it's still a very gender role society, and this is coming from Jakarta. Someone who's from Jakarta, been in Jakarta for a long time, and I've been to Bali a lot. Bali is definitely way more liberal as well. I say those two places in Indonesia, Jakarta and Bali, are the most liberal.
Mm-hmm. But do women work?
Women do work. Women do work, but I definitely think that a lot of Indonesian women would be happy being a housewife and giving up their career. That's still a general consensus, and there's not like a fight for like women to work and. You know what I mean? And
but there is no suppression like in some countries.
I wouldn't say.
Indonesia seems to be like pretty chilled country from the outside, right?
It's chilled. Like I feel like women are extremely well respected in Indonesia. There's a little clip that went out on social media, and it's where this woman in Jakarta, Indonesian woman, Muslim woman, she's trying to cross the road and she was struggling to cross the road, and like a guy just came over, stopped the cars, and then he just ushered her to walk across the road, and like he didn't even gaze at her or like talk to her. It was just like, stop the cars, here you go. And then I thought that was quite nice. But that's
I'm really happy if that's like true and it applies for all men in Indonesia. That would be amazing.
It's definitely not all. It's not all men anywhere, is it?
That would be amazing.
But that is definitely like that wouldn't be an uncommon thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like that scenario as an Indonesian man. When I look at that video, I know that is something that happens in Indonesia. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to also, a little bit talk about your identity. And so do you think you being Indonesian and somehow influenced or connected the way, like, the things you decided to pursue in your life? Like, for example, you do or like used to do, I think you are still doing music and you do music and entrepreneurship, right? Do you think the music was somehow connected to like your self-expression as like Indonesian, or was just general thing?
No, 100%. Like, so for those that don't know me, I'm Fadlan Effendi. You can add me on LinkedIn. But I'm most people on the internet know me as Ninja T. So I started off as Ninja T in 2012. From 2012 all the way to 2018, I mainly branded myself as a rapper, an Indonesian-British rapper. I pivoted more to entrepreneurship more publicly in the past, I would say, four years, yeah. So I still do music. But with regards to, being Indonesian in music, first of all, I rap in Indonesian. So that's a very Indonesian thing, right? To rap in my own language. Not as much as I'd like to, but I have a reasonable amount of content in Indonesian. And then I always...
By the way, I wanted to like do the intro and outro, like one of your songs. I think it's International Wave, so like maybe people are gonna hear it.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Is that
just because there is Indonesian there.
Yeah.
I thought it would be great, and also international. But yeah, so like let's back to music and identity.
Do you know what? I actually don't like that song very much. I would prefer if you use an Indonesian song. Like I've got one called Ayo Kamu Kenalkan Me, and that's my most known Indonesian British, like, because the chorus is in Indonesian.
No, that song is amazing. You have to like.
Dude, like I don't really like it. I don't really like it.
It has energy.
I totally forgot.
I'll check that out.
But anyway, so a lot of my content, I'll be honest, is not really Indonesian focused. It's more focused on entrepreneurship, but I do touch on being Asian, being specifically East Asian looking in a black environment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like
that would be the general topic.
Are you talking about music or generally?
Music.
Oh, okay.
Music, yeah. Within my music,
like, even like in because like when I listen to Indonesia, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So you talk about like being Asian.
Being Asian specifically in black culture.
Because like I guess you grew up and you were surrounded by like a lot of musicians, rappers, and hip hop since you like start doing music, right?
Yeah.
Is it mainly black or it's like diverse?
I would definitely
yours.
My experience of I've always been extremely connected to black British culture. I probably understand black of all the cultures I understand the most in this world. I would go as far to say that I understand black British culture more than any other culture, because that's the culture where I'm actually living. Where like being Indonesian is more like a home thing and what's in my mind. I'm definitely educated enough because I've lived there and I speak the language, etc. But yeah, the topics that a surrounding topic in my music, if anybody checks it out, a recurring theme would be being Asian within a black environment.
Okay.
Yeah. But my experience of hip hop and grime has been mainly through black British people. Obviously, there's very good white rappers as well. Shout out to them, but I'd say it's definitely black orientated.
Okay, I understand. Is it a common thing? Is it popular in Indonesia? The hip hop.
Hip hop? No, it is not popular.
What music is popular in Indonesia?
No, it's not popular. So,
pop music.
So first of all, it must be iterated that the Indonesian hip hop scene is like the equivalent of like the underground metal scene. In the UK.
What it is.
You know what metal music is?
No, I don't know how big is underground metal.
Like,
scene.
It's not very big at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not very big at all. Like, I'm not talking like Metallica where it's like light metal, right? I'm talking like the kind of screamo.
What is it? What people listen in Indonesia most?
So people mainly listen to Indonesia love songs. I'll be honest. It's
Love
like
songs?
it's like lovey pop songs. Like the sound of popular.
Is it like your experience, or it's like a common like?
No, I mean like the most popular songs in Indonesia are love songs, are relationship love songs, Taylor Swift type cheesy vibes.
Why?
That is
Because a lot of self-love and love in the country. Or just like a Western influence.
I don't know if it's Western influence. I'm not too sure the reason why, but this has been the state of popular contemporary Indonesian music for a while. And I'd say the second most popular is kind of like EDM music. Yeah, in Indonesia people love like dance music.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say like back to my questions, like when you start doing music, because obviously you could rap or sing in Indonesian, would you say your intention was to promote like Indonesian hip hop or something like this?
I wouldn't say my intention originally making music was to promote Indonesian hip hop,
but like I don't know, make people more aware, let's say, about Indonesia.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't. When I originally started rapping, I'm gonna be honest. I originally started rapping because I wanted to rap. Like there wasn't like there were. I wasn't on a some kind of spiritual journey because I was 15,
you
16.
Were like, it's just teenager.
As a teenager, and I've always loved grime specifically. Yeah, which is kind of like the the UK subgenre of hip hop. If anybody's listening to the future, search what grime is. Dizzy Rascal, Wiley. That's what I grew up on, right? So that's what I grew up on. That's what I loved, and it just made sense for me to just rap. It made sense for me to, if I'm going to make music, I'm going to make the music that I listen to, the kind of music that I listen to the most. So I did it for completely selfish reasons initially, and then it became more about representing Asians. I'm gonna be honest.
So like basically with the years, with like
with the years,
you became more mature as well.
Yeah. And then eventually I started at one point in my, I guess you say, music career, I branded myself as the Indonesian grime king, and I kind of ran with that for a few years, and that's when I really started tapping into being Indonesian. But the crazy thing is just how life ebbs and flows, right? There's always ups and downs. I've never felt 0% Indonesian, but there's definitely times in my life where I felt more Indonesian.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, more, and like these days I feel a little bit less Indonesian because I haven't been home since 2018.
Okay.
And I've lived in London for 3 years. Right, 3.5 years. I've only just moved back to Manchester to my parents' home. So for 3.5 years, I'm not even speaking Indonesian a lot. I'm not hearing Indonesian. And now, like, because I live back at home, I'm being fed information. Do you know what I mean? Like my mum reads articles, and my dad, like I go downstairs, I hear the Indonesian news. I literally know what's going on in contemporary Indonesia more than I did. I was tuned out for like 3 years, so yeah, there's definitely times where I feel more Indonesian. I feel like the most time I've ever felt Indonesian was maybe like 2017 or 2018 when I was in Bali speaking Indonesian all the time and then rapping in Indonesian and being around the Indonesian hip hop community. Because then I'm even taking in complicated lyrics in Indonesian language. Do you know what I mean?
Would you say this because it's something I can really resonate what you're talking about now, because I lived here and there. Would you say you receive some sort of energy, like, I don't know, like energetic drive when you feel more connected to Indonesia?
Yes, because I feel like I'm connecting with my ancestors.
Yeah.
It's like a
vibration, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? There's I can't remember what video I watched recently. There's this African American like really intelligent guy, Dr. something. He's friends with a guy called 19 Keys. Anyone who's tapped into 19 Keys, he's this really smart guy, African American as well. Kind of like a thought leader. But anyway, this doctor guy, he said that there's been a study where you can actually inherit traits which can be positive and or negative, including trauma, right? Passed down from your ancestors from 10, 15 years ago. And when you tap more into your ancestry, that's where you become more of, I guess you could say, your original self.
When you say 10, 15, you mean like 100 years?
10, 15 generations ago.
115 generations?
Yeah. So like your great granddad, if they, like, let's say, I don't know him, I wish I did, but let's say my great granddad, let's say he was like a a slave or something for some Dutch master and he got whipped or something like that. Yeah. So, somewhere in my life, I might get affected by that trauma. So
I resonate with that. I agree. Yeah, definitely. Well, there is a thing as generational trauma. It's like a few generations, it definitely passes, but I think it can get to a deeper level. Longer, 100 years. Well, it's a different. It's a whole different conversation connected to energy and vibrations. But
this is why it is important. This is why this conversation is quite inspiring as well, because I've always said to myself I'm going to do this, but I do want to study my family tree because I literally don't know my family past my great grandparents.
Is it possible traceable? Or because I know some countries due to colonization it's very hard to trace. Is it the same in Indonesia, or there are some resources?
I have not even tried, so I couldn't tell you how difficult or easy it is.
Because I've tried, this is why conversation is important for me as well. Actually each episode, because for us it's harder to trace because my ancestors, at least 17th century, 18th centuries for sure, they were nomad people, and I don't think there are some sort of government libraries and stuff because they used to live in yurts, but also there was a sort of genocide in the 20th century and etc. etc. So basically when I try to do it, I'm not I only even know one of only my granddad is alive, and the others are dead, and I didn't I was young when they died, and then I'm far away from my family, and when I try to do it I did maybe 5 6 generations, and this is something I really have to do as well. I feel I need to do it even if it's gonna be harder, but I know some families have some of people I know, they did 10 generations, and it's already a lot for me at least,
Yeah.
But this is something would be interesting to do. I forgot we were talking about generational.
See, the thing is with me and Violetta, guys, we're both the kind of people that stray from conversation. So it's we encourage each other to just get away from the original point.
So this is actually there was a good question and a good topic to talk about the generation, because my last question is connected to one topic which we discussed, and it's connected to all topics actually. I remember when I asked you about whether you see yourself British or Indonesian-British, and you said something about that you feel you belong to modern British culture or modern Britain.
Let's revisit that conversation.
So I want to ask you to explain what it means, because I didn't know this terminology. I know there is a modern Britain, but I didn't know there is particular a layer of society or layers. Community. So what is modern British culture in your understanding, and why do you put yourself there?
Okay, so if I were to identify myself, I would identify myself as second generation Indonesian British. And what that means going further is I consider myself, I am proudly part of modern multicultural Britain. And to me, how I define that, because there's no textbook definition, or if there is, even that is subjective, because who gets to decide the definition of anything, right? But anyway, modern multicultural Britain to me is a melting pot of cultures where we accept that we come from another part of the world. We've settled, at least for the time being, in this part of the world. And we embrace where we're from, but we also embrace where we are. So, although I have intentions of leaving the United Kingdom and moving to potentially Dubai or another country which fits more with what I now want in life, I am grateful that I grew up in the United Kingdom between 1996 and present day, because it gave me a pretty good worldview. I could, to be able to have Caucasian, white, Anglo-Saxon, more traditional white British friends, and then also having Jamaican British friends with parents that were straight from Jamaica. One of my best friends is Nigerian British. His parents are very Nigerian. I went to his very Nigerian wedding, right? That was the best wedding I've ever been to in my life. Shout out Joshua, if you know him. He's an amazing artist as well. In fact, check out Ninja TEA and Joshua. We have like 2 songs together. I definitely got a taste of other cultures. Positive experiences almost always of different cultures just by living in Manchester. Do you know what I mean? Just by going to school in Manchester, I'd have an Indian friend, a Pakistani friend, a Nigerian friend, a Ghanaian friend, some white friends, and some Jamaican friends, and then other friends from the Caribbean as well. Not really any Latino friends. Like there's not really much Latino immigration. Definitely Chinese, and I would go to their houses, and then they would tell me about their culture, just passing out from their parents, and I feel like in general, just generalizing, most second generation British people are proud of where their families are from. Yeah, and we have a very we have a like I speak about this with a lot of my African and Caribbean descent friends, and you know, one of the biggest differences between Black Americans and Black British people is that most Black British people did not come from slavery. Almost all Black British people come from immigration. So most Black British people, if their parents are not from the original country, their grandparents will be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they'll always say like, I'm Nigerian, I'm Jamaican, I'm from Barbados, I'm from Ghana or whatever. So yeah, that's why I like modern. That's why
that is for you modern British.
That for me is modern Britain. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's a good explanation, and I think it's actually like very beautiful, and I think not UK, but people of this modern Britain capable of, and they are embracing that, and I think it's amazing because not every country in the world would be embracing differences, you know, like maybe we say something good about the UK one time, but like, yeah, I think obviously there are problems and its own issues, but I think it is like a place where it can be embraced, you know, like it's like, obviously racism is everywhere and things like that, but from my experience as well, as you said, even like I don't know, a few years living here, I have been exposed as well to even this podcast. Like I've already talked like to 4 different, you know, people and from everywhere, and like, and I love that, and like I just wish more embracing of like, you know, different cultures, but also at the same time like keeping to your own 100%. Roots and like and understanding yourself.
So let me give a quick commentary on racism. Racism definitely exists, but it's definitely way better than it's ever been, because I have a little sister, I'm 10 years older than her. I remember dealing with a little bit of racism when I was young. Yeah.
Like in school, you mean?
No, not at school. Just like, there's always some ignorant white person somewhere. Yeah, okay. there's always an ignorant white person somewhere in England that has something to say when they're drunk and it's inappropriate. But I'm super glad that my little sister, who wears a hijab, she outwardly says, in Manchester, I am 100% comfortable being myself and I don't feel like a victim. And I've had a positive experience growing up being myself, and I've not felt being disadvantaged. Like she's a design student, right? She's like way more introverted than me. She's got a super tight clique. Like she's got private Instagram. She's like 130 followers, right? And I love her for that. And she's like super low key. And the way that she wants to live her life, like she said that it literally doesn't matter that I'm Muslim and wear a hijab. Like this doesn't stop me from doing anything I want to do. And she rolls with that kind of mentality. She has no victim mentality. She's not
That's
like,
amazing.
To her, Islamophobia doesn't exist.
So
you know
would you say it used to be, because I don't like, so I grew up not having Muslim friends, because like Asian place, and then I moved to Moscow, and like I met some like people from Muslim republics, but I've never literally been close friends, and that's why maybe some questions may be silly. So when you were growing up, for female growing up, okay, not when you growing up, 10, 15 years ago, let's go, was it, would people say some things to a girl who is like always wearing a hijab?
I remember Yeah,
or even 20 years ago.
Yeah, so you have to bear in mind that when I was young, there was a time when I was like 8 years old. Do you remember the war in Iraq?
2000.
And 9/11?
Yeah.
That was a really bad time to be Muslim in the UK.
Oh yeah.
That was a bad time to be hijabi, because there was an energy in the air where like and
You remember that time?
Yeah, I'm just about young enough.
You were like very young.
Yeah, I was young, but my mum.
Oh, your mom wears hijab.
My mum wears a hijab, and I felt the energy, right? Because energy speaks louder than words. When when I was just a kid by myself, it would be different. But when I was with her, I could feel people looking. Like they won't throw stones at her, but there would be an uncomfortable. There would be like oh, let me just step out the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like there wasn't. I wouldn't say she was hurled with racist abuse or anything like that. I remember there was one time when we was in Greg's and I was like 9, and like, and I think my mum. I wouldn't say she was the victim of racist attacks, but she was definitely the recipient of prejudice.
So it's like 2001, 9/11 happened, and like after that time.
After that time. Yeah. So I remember we was in Greg's, and then like the woman at Greg's during the time said, "Oh, we can't sit here. We're clearing this space." Made some crappy excuse, and it was clear. It was clear that person was just uncomfortable with my mum.
Okay.
During the time because
go on.
Yeah, because we was like, okay, whatever. We walked out, and then 2 minutes later, some white people sat down, and then do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, okay, cool. She's just, but my mum was never. She's never confrontational about it, like we've always been about integrating into society, and my parents have always been high level thinkers, so they would have a level of empathy towards maybe people that
who don't have the understanding.
Who don't have the understanding. So we maneuvered through that as a family.
Okay,
pretty
that's
well
beautiful.
During that time.
I mean, not the Islamophobia, but the empathy of your parents. Okay, that's actually interesting. I didn't know about that. So, apart from accidents with your mom, have you experienced yourself some sort of like Islamophobia? Because you weren't like explicitly like religious child.
You can't even. I mean, you don't know I'm Muslim because I don't have the Muslim man look. You know what I mean? Like with the brown skin and the beard. So
clothes,
yeah. So like.
I didn't know you're Muslim as well, to be fair.
Yeah, there is absolute... Most Muslims wouldn't look at me and think I'm Muslim.
Plus, you also, like, you like super, like, opposite of Muslim stereotype, I think. You know what it... Does it make sense? Because there is a stereotype, there is a man, he's, like, super conservative and straight and wouldn't talk to you.
There's definitely a stereotype, and I'm not that stereotype. I feel like I just have gone against all stereotypes because I'm not even a stereotypical Asian. Like, I don't have a degree, I'm not into science, I don't play games, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
basically, like, it wasn't... because it's something external, the Islamophobia would apply to people who would easily, you can put them into a category of being Muslim. You didn't really experience much as a child, right?
No.
But it was like because of the hijab, females were like wearing.
Yeah. So I would say, what's crazy? The most level of, I'll say racism, because the thing is, like, you can't just use the word racist so freely. Like, racism is an actual act. Prejudice is a thought. Right? There's a difference, but the most level of quote unquote racism, or more accurately prejudice, that I've ever felt is actually not that long ago, and that was during COVID. But it wasn't coronavirus. It was that time just before the world lockdown. Because
what happened?
Those times it was all about like Chinese virus. There's a virus in China, and obviously I look very East Asian.
Oh, you mean when just everything started to grow, yeah?
Yeah. Like, I remember being in Manchester and like I could just feel the energy. Like, I could feel the energy of like going in a queue, and then like people would look at me and then like step back a bit, and I'm just like, come on.
Like, I talked to one Kalmar girl, she lives in London, she's a bit younger than me, and she said to me that people were shouting at her because she looks Asian, like during the corona, or like just like like shouting at her and like running away and things like that in London.
In London?
Yeah,
Crazy,
yeah. And
crazy.
so I didn't experience that because I was in Russia back then, but that's completely different story. Okay, this is already over an hour, and
Oh wow, is it?
we're probably gonna wrap up
No
now,
way.
and
Yes.
hopefully maybe we'll do another one in the future. And
been amazing.
thank you very much, Fadlan. I had a great conversation, and I think it is never waste of time to talk about your ancestry, your identity, your culture, even though we didn't dive as deep as I wanted to.
Of course.
But there is still life to live, and there is time to work and to
Yes.
record a podcast. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you as
Hopefully
well.
we talk about this again in the future. And thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye everyone.
Dunia Indonesia gue akan selalu gak mungkin gak pernah representas. Cuma please paham, gue orang Inggris pertama, Indo kedua, gue orang Inggris pertama.